Probably give away a few trade secrets.
In Meliora Contende, strive for better things. At St Joseph's College, Hunters Hill, this isn't just a motto, it's a way of life. Built on the Maris brothers' traditions of humility, simplicity and modesty, JOEYS has forged a rugby dynasty that has dominated the Sydney GPS schoolboy competition for over a century. Since 1894, one jersey stood apart, the cerise and blue triple bar of the first 15. It isn't just a fabric, it's a symbol of excellence, a badge of a brotherhood that never walks alone, and a testament to a program that has defined greatness. But what truly makes JOEYS Rugby untouchable? How does a school originally founded in 1881 for rural boys seeking a Catholic education continue to produce generation after generation of champions? To answer that, we sit down with a man who bleeds cerise and blue, John Reading, a champion coach, mentor and leader. John has witnessed firsthand the evolution of JOEYS Rugby. With decades of experience, he has been a key member of one of Australia's most successful schoolboy rugby programs, coaching 2 first 15 undefeated premiership winning teams, as well as 7 reserve grade premierships. His influence goes beyond the field. John spent 14 years as head of boarding, was master of rowing. He was a specialist economics teacher. Few understand the inner workings of JOEYS Rugby like he does. Today, we go under the hood of a Wallaby machine. Later, we'll break down the numbers that fuel the JOEYS aura. Is JOEYS dominance built on talent, or is there something deeper in the school's DNA? How does a program maintain such incredible consistency decade after decade? What does it really mean to play against a JOEYS team? Are you facing 15 players or the spirit of an entire school? We're pulling back the curtain on a rugby institution, diving into the legacy, the strategy and the culture that makes many JOEYS full-grown Wallabies. John Reading, welcome.
Thank you, Chris. Pleasure to be here.
You're a Joe boy?
Yes, yeah. I was at JOEYS from 1967 to 1972. Yes.
67 to 72.
Yeah,
and
right.
Did you play rugby?
Yes, I did.
Were
Yes.
you a high-level player?
Well, I suppose to be fair to say, in my final year, I was in the first 15. Yeah, I think you arrive at, a large number of boys arrive at the JOEYS because of the catchment area and the diversity, not having played rugby. And I hadn't. I'd played a little bit of rugby league at my primary school, but never played rugby. And so once you start playing the game and the culture encourages to continue and strive, I think there wouldn't be any boys at JOEYS that wouldn't love to be in the first 15. You know, anyone who walks around the fields at JOEYS, even this afternoon, there'll be 800 boys, maybe in excess of 800 boys, really enjoying their rugby, enjoying their training, being well coached, and we're very lucky that so many young boys enjoy really playing rugby. It's quite extraordinary. And I think every boy, you walk from the park with boys at the end and say, I was in the Fs last year, sir, but I'm going for the Es this year, and very proud to be able to say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's for sure. And there's some incredible stories like that. I know our first Australian schoolboy back in 1973 was a fellow by the name of Frank Caboni. He started in 13 Gs and then eventually made it through to the first and then to Australian schoolboys. They were the first. They were the second Australian schoolboy side. The first went to South Africa, but Frank Caboni went with some real legends. They toured the UK in 1973, yes. So 13 Gs, the Australian schoolboys. And there's stories like that. There's definitely stories like that, yeah. Even stories where some of the graduates from the school, didn't even play first 15 that are also been very successful. Bill Young, Wallaby from JOEYS seconds, Luke Burgess, Wallaby from JOEYS seconds. So there's those sort of stories. They're quite extraordinary.
Right.
Quite extraordinary, yeah.
Is there something? What's the cerise and blue? Is that a French connection?
Yeah, well, they're a French order. I haven't done my homework on that. It is there, but they're a French order. The brothers were founded by a French priest by the name of Marston Champagne, now Saint Marston Champagne, and he was ordained in Lyon. And then he was sent to a parish when he was ordained not far out of Lyon. My memory serves me correctly, it was called Lavala. And when he got there, he realised the children were very poor. They couldn't read or write or do their sums. And he asked for volunteers to come and help him teach the children and help him with the children. As the decades rolled on, some of those volunteers agreed to join his order, but they formed the Maris brothers. And in 1872, those French brothers sailed to Australia and the South Pacific, and they arrived in Sydney. They set up a school in Darlinghurst, and then in 1881, the hierarchy of the church invited them to come to Hunters Hill to set up a boarding school for country boys.
They had an eye for locations.
Yeah, I think the story of Marston and Champagne probably tells you a little bit about the culture of St Joseph's.
And what's that?
Oh, in terms that everyone's entitled to an education. There's never been entrance exams. In fact, probably their success is probably not getting in the front page of the Sydney Morning Herald when the HSC results getting out, but boys who might have got 70 get 80. Boys who might have got 50 get 60. And that's very appealing and very rewarding. And I think that suits the JOEYS culture very much, that we strive to be better.
You're an all boarding school.
Yes.
They're all pretty much from the country.
Yes.
Don't you think there's a connection there?
They were hard kids, there's no question of that. The fact that they all lived on site was a huge advantage as well. And they loved the physicality of the game of rugby, and if you go to any country town today, you go to Narrabri or Moree or Tamworth, there's a rugby culture there that is based on, I would say, the core of it would have been boys who went away to school, whether it be Kings, Review, Joey, Shaw, there's no question. Oh yeah, I think probably that's a factor, not the only factor, but certainly a factor of the success.
A factor, yeah.
Yeah. And once you've got a boarding culture, if you look at it today with, there's of a cohort of 1,100, there's around about 600 boarders and about 500 day boys. And a lot of those day boys would stay till 8 o'clock anyway. They have to stay till 5. The after-school touch football games, even after study, out the back, where... at any evening you could go there might be 400 or 500 kids out the back ovals playing touch football. Yeah. And you can't buy that. You can't. And you see their skill and they learn, and then you might have an A-grade footballer passing to an F-grade footballer in a game of touch football, and that's hugely a big part of the success.
Right.
Yeah, after dinner and after study of a night time, the back ovals have now been lit up, and each of the year masters would get all the boys up. He'd probably mark the day boys off that are going, and then he'd just make an announcement, back ovals, and the teachers will follow them down, and the boys will go out to the back ovals, and it's very exciting touch football.
Now, John, who is this Brother Henry?
Right. Well, it's a bit of an entree into all the things I'd say about JOEYS. Actually, he was a primary school teacher from New Zealand, but when I was in year 7 sitting there, I couldn't have a swim because of an ear infection. Brother Henry came and sat beside me. I knew it was him because I had 2 older brothers at JOEYS. Obviously a brilliant coach, there's no question. Even
they talked of him being a tactical genius.
Yeah, genius, that's right. The press of the day referred to him as a tactical genius. And he won in excess of 20 reserve grade premierships and I think 20 first grade premierships, which is quite unusual. Given that, if you go back...
Is that from 1922?
Yes, it'd be from 1922. And given that, you'd probably see that grammar very strong through that era. Kings were probably fairly strong, but grammar was probably the strongest through that era. Yeah, look, I think he had a great ability to teach the game. From people of that era, and when you read on him, he was a great tactician. He was able to develop players and able to encourage them to be very proud of the jersey that they were wearing. Yeah, but he was a primary school teacher, Henry, and obviously a very capable man and a very modest man. He never, even though he was elderly when I met him, he never talked about his successes. It was always left to someone else to acknowledge his ability as a coach. And he lived at the school.
To a ripe age.
To a ripe age. Actually, he lived in the stone building, up the very top of the stone building. He had his room there, and we'd often see him walking around the corridors. And a very lovely man. Very lovely man.
What do you think it was about his tactical, an aspect of his tactical genius? What do you think that was?
From what I hear, I've never watched it. From what I could see, speed of his forwards particularly, and he had great success with his fullbacks and outside backs. So I suspect his ability to bring them in at the right time. And if you look at a lot of the scores, he's obviously was very eloquent at defence. The other thing he did do, which probably would be very difficult today, he coached both first and seconds.
Right.
Which I think gave him great depth, and he knew who he could put on, and he developed players that were able to come up to first grade if required.
You love your for and against at Joey's, don't you? Like, it tells a story.
Well,
huh?
Well, actually, when you get onto some other people, the statistics kept on all of that was quite extraordinary.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah. There was a 6-period day for teaching sport, and obviously rugby became period 7. And it was just another lesson. They were very strong on that. Yeah, now we go from the classroom to the fields, and we're going to learn about rugby here, and we're going to learn about sportsmanship and friendship, and we're going to have a good time, and we're going to get fit. And certainly going right back to the brothers and my early days at Joey's, that was definitely the thought and the culture that was period 7. Another learning opportunity.
So when you say speed with Brother Henry, do you think he did particular training for that?
Well, he had some great athletes.
Yeah.
Like the 55 relay team, the record stayed forever. Jim McCann still comes and watches it. Yeah, he had a lot of speed. So I don't think that speed just starts in the athletic season. I think it's obviously developed in rugby, and he did have some great speed. He had great athletes in Terry Curley and Jim McCann, Peter Kaplan. So no, it was he obviously developed players. And the interesting thing, when you would run into old boys, that when my earlier days, they'd all be getting on a bit now. And if you meet old boys at the school, they praised his ability to direct his team, to give brilliant halftime talks, and to get his players all very fit.
Right.
Yeah.
How does a Joey's team get fit?
Well, it's interesting you ask, because in my time, I think I was absolutely privileged to have a man by the name of Mr. John Healy, who had been the conditioner for Parramatta through a circumstance that happened in the early 80s when Brother Anthony and Jimmy Gray took some boarders out to watch Parramatta play. They were called to the Parramatta dressing room because in the Parramatta dressing room there was a parent from Joey's, Dr. Ferguson, who had a boy at Joey's, and they were introduced to John Healy, who was the fitness coach or fitness director at Parramatta. And one thing led to another, conversation started, and they brought Parramatta out to Joey's. The Parramatta League team came out to Joey's in 1980, I think it would have been, and they were guns in those days. You're talking about Sterling and Beats and so on. And they worked out, not with our rugby players, though, with our rowers on that occasion. John Healy became, through conversation, very interested in sending his boys to Joey's.
Right.
So both Michael and Paul came to Joey's, and John offered his services to coach the rowers and the first and second 15.
Right.
And what he did, I think he revolutionised fitness for rugby players.
Right.
The boys were never tired. He never overworked them. He had great drills. He used to talk them through it. One of his famous quotes that we still use at Joey's: "You don't run to the line, you run through the line."
Right.
And that's become part of the culture, thanks to him. Look, off the top of my head, he probably had, with first and second premierships, with first probably from 81 to 2000, he probably was part of at least 20 premierships, and
really,
and even more second grade premierships.
Oh, in the 80s,
80s and 90s,
right,
yeah, and up to 2002, yeah,
right,
yeah.
It's funny you say that, because as a kid, like, my first introduction to Joey's was through a guy called Paul Peterson, who'd been he'd been at Joey's 63, 4 and 5.
That's
I think
correct.
he was in the first 15 each year.
It was the very first game I watched Paul Peterson was in.
Yeah,
65.
I think he won the 100 or something.
He was a sprinter.
Yeah,
and he was a prop.
Yeah,
that's right. Quite extraordinary.
And so when I was a kid, he said, "Here, take a look at these highlight videos."
Yeah,
he gave me half a dozen of them and said, "That's how you play rugby."
Yeah.
But the other thing he said was, "Look, if you want to get fit, this is what you do." He said, "You go and do 100 metres. you sprint it, you jog back. And he gave me an absurd amount. I forget the exact amount, but it was an astronomical amount.
Yeah.
And he said, do that for 7 days and you'll be fit.
Yes. Yes.
And I've never forgotten it.
Yeah.
And that's why when I was talking to Michael Morgan,
Yeah.
he had the sprinting in his training. And that's why it was doubly intriguing for me, because there was something about sprint work that got you hugely, the fitness was huge. So I imagine that was probably part what you're talking about here.
Yes, definitely. And they were coached by a man still alive, actually, named by the name of Brother Gerald Burns. And he was a teacher as well. He was a Latin and English teacher and held in very high respect. Actually, the crossover there, Brother Gerald Burns will probably go down in history. I can't see anyone going past it to coach a championship rugby team at JOEYS and ahead of the river.
Right.
Yeah, because they're too specialised.
Yes.
But he coached rowing and rugby.
Oh, right.
And very successfully. Great disciplinarian.
Right.
And interestingly, in 1969 and 73, he was the manager for the Australian schoolboys. Brother Gerald was. The success of him as a manager was quite amazing. Actually, Steve Vernane, who toured to South Africa in 69, wrote a book, and in that book he talks about how great Brother Gerald Burns was as a manager.
Right.
And despite him becoming a Wallaby and obviously very senior in club rugby, he would say that this Brother Gerald Burns was the best manager he had, because he knew rugby as well. He knew schoolboys as well, extremely well. I think if you look at JOEYS, where they align that and rugby and sport is that the JOEYS has been very fortunate to have teachers in very prominent positions as far as rugby was concerned.
Right.
For decades, if you were the year master of a group, you would be the coach of the A's. For decades. And even up until, even if you take today's coaches, if you take Greg Thompson, who's got the first, and Rob Hahn, they're senior teachers at JOEYS, senior administrators, and they're the coach of the first 15. Before that, Tim Anderson was a year master and coached the first 15. And of course, probably the ultimate teacher, in my belief, is Brother Anthony Boyd, who was the year master of many year groups, deputy headmaster, and coach of the first 15. And they're very good at teaching the game. And I think another strength, if you have that, they understand schoolboys, they understand the pressures on them, they understand that there's people wanting them back at school, that they've got study to do, and that completes the picture for a very successful coaching arrangement. Where there's good school teachers coaching sport in any GPS school, I think you'll find that they would be successful.
Is it easier to get a job at JOEYS if you're a good coach?
Things have changed a bit because you now have heads of rugby. Like, for example, we've had Andrew Blades there as running it. So, and I'll tell you what, talk about a coach, what a great coach he was. He doesn't coach anymore. Now they've got Jack Isaac, who played for JOEYS, played for Eastern Suburbs, then went to France and played senior there and coached there. So, yeah, it's gone a bit beyond that.
Is he Matt Isaac's brother? Or?
Correct. Older brother, Jack. Yep, that's right. And he's good. Andrew Blades was excellent as well.
He didn't go to JOEYS? Or?
No, Andrew Blades was an interesting one, actually. Andrew Blades voluntarily helped Brother Anthony with his first 15 and second 15 in the late 80s, early 90s. Then he came and helped me in 93, 4, 5, and his advice was extraordinary. He had a tremendous ability to identify good scrummages and body shape.
Really?
And their grips and all of that. One time, in 94 actually, the second 15, the Reds as we call them, were giving the Blacks a bit of a hiding, actually, the first 15. And it was pre-mobile phones. But anyway, after the session he went home and I'd had my dinner and he obviously had his, and there's a phone rings and my daughter picks the phone up and says, "Oh, Dad, there's an Andrew Blades on the phone to speak to you." And I said, "Oh, right, okay." So I picked up the phone and Andrew said, "When you go over tomorrow, swap your hookers. I've just been thinking about it, swap your hookers." So I did, and the Blacks just took off, yeah.
And the what, sorry? The
first took off with the new hooker. Took the second.
Really?
Hooker, yeah, swap your hookers. So that's the sort of thing he could do.
Right.
Which, to the layman like myself, probably because I hope I'm not insulting the other hooker, because he was by far the fittest. The other hooker, the first,
Right.
had but he just scrummaging and he picked it.
Really?
He picked it.
Wow.
And never looked back after that.
Wow.
So Andrew Blades went. Jack Isaacs is very good too. But Andrew became a very good friend of the college and a very good friend of Tony Boyd's and the whole school, actually. Yeah, good operator.
So, yeah, anything in particular about the way Tony Boyd, anything else there about how he operated? How did he know the game so well?
Well, he's interesting because he'll tell you that he played fifth grade rugby at JOEYS and he was the slowest swinger ever played for JOEYS. But look, I've worked with him for many years, and he could come and watch. He coaches the 15Fs at the moment, which I have the pleasure to assist him with there. And he's a very good teacher of the game.
Right.
And he observes the game extremely well.
Right.
Like he can be watching...
Perceptive.
You're watching the Waratahs, the Wallabies, JOEYS, and without being critical, he'll identify strength and he'll identify weakness if need be. He keeps in the back at the moment because he knows how hard it is to coach a first 15. But look, I think his strength is teaching the skills of the game and persevering with them. I remember we were doing some drills with the 15F.
Persevering,
Yeah, the 15Fs, and we're going up and down, passing the ball, quick hands, pass the ball. And this was last year, one of the boys came into brother, he said, this is getting really boring. Are we going to do something different? And he said, when you can catch and pass, we'll be moving on. But the boys, when he talks, they listen.
Yeah.
And that's a big skill.
Yeah, okay.
Because you've got to concentrate, and if someone's going to give their time up to come and coach you,
There's so many aspects to it.
well, very hard today. They've all got they watch every game. They can watch it 10 times before they play you. They know your moves. They
Right.
know your strengths. Yeah, I think that's made it hard. But
Is that right?
But every time you go out, you see a different strength, and the coaches are better for it.
When I was about 11, I heard a story that the boys were playing tackle football, and one of the brothers in full robes saw one of the tackles which wasn't so good. And he then said, that's not a tackle, this is a tackle. Is that a myth?
No, that'd be folklore. That would be folklore.
Right.
Yeah, but we had a brilliant defensive coach there that we had there through the late 70s, 80s and right up to the 90s. And I certainly had the luxury of having him. He was brilliant on the biomechanics of tackling. And
okay.
He would be very capable of saying, that's not a tackle. But
is that right?
He was very
because
capable.
because can't schoolboy at schoolboy level they be a bit gun shy about tackling? Is that a thing?
Yeah, I think they've got to be taught how to tackle legally, because now it's all below the chest. I think once a boy gets taught it, I think a lot of my generation and others probably went through their rugby careers without ever being taught how to tackle. And yet there were just some who were just really just natural at it, just knew how to do it.
Really?
Yeah. But I think Brother Bede brought a biomechanic explanation of how to tackle.
Right.
And one of his most successful tackles that I had been part of and helped win comps was what he called the bear tackle. If you're the only one on the line and someone's charging for you, don't try to stop him. You wrap him up and you take him over the line.
Right.
And Joey's got a lot of held up through that bear tackle. And that was his. But he certainly gave a lot of boys the confidence to go into a tackle legally and effectively.
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant man.
Yeah, right.
Great maths teacher, another teacher.
I remember that name.
Yeah, B. Yates, yeah, great maths teacher and a very good defensive coach.
So there's a strong work ethic there, John, at the school.
I think so, and I think that comes from your diverse population, your country boys, your overseas boys, the boys that have already played their rugby at various clubs. There's no question of that. The other thing where your work ethic comes from, and it's something that we're very proud of, and it's been sustained even with day boys. We all go and watch the first and second 15 every week. And
JOEYS included. Yeah, they have to go. Yeah.
And it's nothing to finish training on a Thursday, and a boy might come up to us from the 15th and say, "Oh, sir, how can I improve?" And I said, "Well, probably not now, but what I suggest you do is when we're over watching the first on Saturday, you watch number 7,
right,
or number 3,
or
number 10." And
that's interesting.
Yeah, that's a huge, and it's probably even better rugby to watch in a way than. Well, I'm probably a bit biased here, but it's a quick game, and it's controlled, and it's a very open game. So they do see it played well every week, even if it's the opposition. Like the Shaw game over at Northbridge last year, Shaw played so well. Their 5'8" was terrific. Their number 7 was fantastic. So it was, for all of us to see that and be involved and. Being able to cheer for them and to acknowledge, good defence and good attack. It's a great advantage for us.
Because I remember, just on the work ethic, I remember being down in Mannion Avenue, Rose Bay, in the school holidays one time, and I saw your fullback. I recognised him,
right.
Ryan Rogan.
Ryan Rogan, yeah.
And it was in the holidays, in the middle of the day. He had about half a dozen footballs with him, and he was just knocking these balls over. Yeah. I don't recall seeing him miss.
No.
And I thought you just wouldn't see it from another school. Yeah. There just was something there about his work ethic.
Yeah, no, he loved his rugby, and he was a great fullback for JOEYS, and he had a great step, and he was very quick over 15 metres. He got half a break, he could open the game up.
Right.
Yeah, no, he was terrific.
You guys could open games up. What was that? Because we made a mistake against you. I played against one of your sides.
Right.
It was about 3/4 of the way through the game, and that mistake was capitalised on. It was seized on. It was scooped up. I think it was Slater. It went straight to Timmins, Azar, and it was sort of under the post scenario.
Yeah.
That's the sort of difference. JOEYS will do that quite a lot. Is that just a lot of? Is that coming from a lot of drills?
I think they do. I think the backs coaches at JOEYS over the years, they've had Jeremy Ticehurst, Steve Knight. I had Brian Sullivan, Miles Newman, Mark Williams. They did a lot of counter-attack. They genuinely believed in counter-attack.
Right. They genuinely believed in it.
They believed in it.
Why is that? There's an opportunity there.
Well, they probably give away a few trade secrets. But anyway, no, we generally believed that schools would kick to us.
You genuinely
believed that they would kick to us, that was their best way to get territory.
Right.
And
so how does that tie in?
Well, if you get the idea would be you'd run it back at them.
Oh, you'd run it back at them. That was the idea.
That was the idea, and they were very good on that. Terry Curley was great on counter attack as well, and he had some great back lines. But it's gone through, and I think the idea of running it back rather than kicking it back, and then you got to wrestle for the ball again for another 10 phases or something. Whereas even if you don't gain as much territory, you've still got the ball. And we were firm believers in ball in hand.
There was just something different about the JOEYS side. There was a line out, and you just knew that you'd done 1,000 of them. It was just so well executed. The ball would just go straight off the top. I distinctly remember it going down to the halfback, goes straight to the 5'8". The 5'8" would just kick it perfectly, and you'd find yourself under pressure in your own 22.
That's right.
Well, very well coached.
They have had some great 5'8s. There's no question of that.
But what are you doing? You're just doing the lots of drills, and you're practicing that a lot, John. Is that right?
Yeah, I think probably the 4 afternoons a week. But we don't. In my day, we never kicked a rugby ball till it was rugby season. But in fairness, there was obviously kids playing a bit of touch and that sort of thing. The line-outs, I always, and I'm sure Tony Boyd might have used, Brother Anthony might have used Andrew Blades a bit too on line-out. I certainly did. I had David Kelleher come and help me in 94, 95, and he'd left JOEYS in 91 or 91, I think, and he was playing for Randwick at the time, and he would come over on a Wednesday and just tweak our line-out a bit, but also worked on the breakdown drills, and he was an enormous assistance. And then you just practice it. But we have had some good line-outs over the years. Lifting changed that lad a fair bit. But
one thing that stands out with JOEYS is the consistency. How do you get that consistency, do you think?
If you look at the history of it all, I think that having, to go back to Brother Henry being a primary school teacher, you go Brother Gerald, a teacher, you go back to Terry Curley was a science teacher, you go back from then, you went to Jeff Schwager, who was deputy headmaster at JOEYS and a very successful rugby player himself. Brother Charles Evans, who coached with me, and he was... had very limited eyesight, but he was a great coach. Interesting, I'll come back to that, but Brother Charles, who coached in your day with me, his eyesight was really bad. And quite often I'd be sitting beside him, we'd have a runner who was the water boy, and if we'd scored a try, I'd say to the runner, find out who scored that try. And Brother Charles would say, Matt Radford, or to give the name, because he studied their running style.
Right.
Whereas we'd be looking at numbers, he looked at their running style. So he was a brilliant coach, brilliant tactician, great athletic coach as well. But then, so you look at people like that, and obviously, the strength of Tony Boyd, Brother Anthony, as deputy headmaster and coaching the first 15.
Right.
I think that gives you enormous, and he's always spoke very well to the boys, he always supported all the sports, but it did give your rugby a certain discipline, and it went beyond just going out there, socks up, and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
And
it brings me to that modesty, the humility, the simplicity. Do you think that does that underpin the mindset for a work ethic, do you think?
Oh, I think for sure. And when you consider that, the history of that, and probably still very prominent, is we all live together, and that those boys who play in the first 15 or whatever, they'd go back to the school, have a shower, walk up to the dining room, and they could well be sitting with a boy in the dining room who plays 13th, 15th.
Yeah.
And because of that, if you walk into the dining room or into the classroom a little bit better than everyone else, that it'd soon be clarified that no, that's not the way we do it around here.
Right.
Because you're part of a shared effort.
Right.
And you're part of an enormous tradition and culture, which I think brings a certain degree of modesty, knowing that no matter how good you are, you're good because of the traditions of this school. I think the GPS is a great association. Yeah. I really do. I think we've all got similar goals, similar ambitions, similar cultures, although different.
Yeah.
That rugby just gives you a great opportunity in many ways to show your spirit. And Saturdays at JOEYS are a celebration of our parents and friends and old boys. And we are able to gather as a school and watch a game of rugby. Happens to be rugby. It could well have been Aussie rules, by the way.
Celebrating a day of sport. I think I saw.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that is a strength of JOEYS. And some people, I remember talking to some from Shaw, it was at the Athletics actually, and he noticed all our boys there. And he was a senior master at Shaw and both retired like me now. And he said to me, whatever you do, don't stop doing that, bringing your boys to the head of the river, to the athletics and the rugby. And I said, oh, Ike, he said, you'll never get it back. You'll never get it back. If you stop doing it, you've lost it. It's too hard.
What the school, you mean? Or?
Yeah, like what he said was make sure you still sustain boys coming to those events.
Right.
Because once you stop it, families come to that school not expecting it, and you've lost it.
Right.
So you can't change the rules now. Whereas we, from the very outset, we say, look, if you're choosing JOEYS, this is the go. You'll be at the head of the river, you'll be at the rugby, you'll be at the GPS athletics, you'll be at family masses. So, we're lucky we hung on to that. In fact, when we were going day, the headmaster day surveyed, got a lot of the old boys, parents, boys, staff. They surveyed them all. And the biggest theme coming through it, there are certain things that are sacrosanct. You can't change. Don't change the compulsory nature of a lot of the things we do was very strong.
Right.
And it has worked. You know, even last year, the weather turned on us something awful, and we were out at Kins. Our kids got absolutely drenched, and it was cold. And, you know, to a man as that year went on, and when the year 12s were speaking, they would say a highlight of their year was the Kings game. You know,
Right.
all huddled up like this.
right.
Yeah, that's right. So, look, we're very lucky. And what I think it's really important these days of the technology and all the gaming and, you know, the distractions, that there's boys are encouraged to be together in fresh air, watching things, supporting something, cheering.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Are you still playing double round robin, or has it gone back?
No, we've gone back to 2 rounds.
Gone back to 2 rounds?
Yeah, we had it, lost it, then now it's back again.
Right.
I think it's better. Home and away is better. And you High and Graham have dropped to 3rd grade.
Yep.
So in that 3rd grade, you've got Armidale, High, Grammar, and other schools' 3rd grades.
Right.
Yeah.
So, John, you take over the head coaching role after Anthony Boyd.
Yeah.
He does 5 in a row.
He's just done 5 in a row. Thanks, Boydie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's that like?
Oh,
You know, you've got all this pressure, I imagine.
well, you never say no. If ever you're a staff member at JOEYS and someone says, you know, would you help Brother Charles with the first 15? The answer is absolutely yes. It was always going to be difficult. Scots were very good in 92. In fact, we had a very tough game with them, and a lot of those boys were back and others.
Oh, a lot of those were back.
And others. I think...
Because the writing was on the wall a little bit.
Oh, and it was their centenary year.
Yeah.
So they were keen. And they did some good things with their, you know, they obviously had some great players there, you know, that had represented schoolboys at various levels. Plus Tom Bowman, who was a local Scots boy, he was outstanding.
Was that the only game you lost that year?
No, we lost to High.
Oh, you did you? No,
Yeah, High were a bit unlucky.
Tony Hannon, huh?
Yeah,
he was good, wasn't he?
Tony Hannon was a great coach and a great man. High would have to consider themselves more unlucky than us.
Right.
Because we lost to High at Centennial Park. It was a good game though. We led, and they got us down. They scored in the last few minutes actually, and then we lost to Scots, and then High lost to Scots, which probably I felt, if any side that should have felt a little bit disappointed, High should have, because they had the ability to win for sure. Yeah,
Toughest game I ever played was against his High side at Centennial Park.
He was a beautiful coach and a beautiful man, and if you did beat him, he was so gracious, and he'd congratulate you. And one time, I think it must have been 94, he said, would I be able to come home and watch the video of that game? It was such a good game of rugby. And I said, sure. You know, we met one afternoon, he met the boys, and we watched the video together. Most impressive man.
What was the score in that one?
Oh, jeez, it was an amazing game.
Tight game, was it?
No, we were down 10-3 at half-time.
Right.
And Greg Thompson, who currently has the first at JOEYS, he was the inside centre. And at half, we always would ask the captain and the vice-captain what they thought. Anyone else got anything to say? And Greg Thompson said, Mark Stabina is drifting over to Kieran Shepherd, and there's gaps opening up. Can I have a few runs? And we said, go for it. We won 33-10.
Right.
Yeah. Mind you, just Stabina came off.
This was at half-time, you sort of...
Half-time.
Oh,
and
really?
Stabina got injured about 15 minutes into the second half. He did. It was an own goal, actually. One in a tackle, one of the High boys hit his nose. But, it did open up. One of the problems for Tony Hannon was depth. He could get 15, 16, 17 really good rugby players, but he didn't have the depth of the likes of JOEYS and your Kings and so on. You know, we always had a pretty strong backup. But a real delight to coach against and not with, but certainly against.
Was he the biggest challenge for you as a coach?
Geez, Andrew.
Do you think he gave you...
Yeah, no, he's yeah. Well, if you go back to the Sydney High eras in my day as a schoolboy, they were phenomenal. They had bunny fast back lines, they were phenomenal. Tony Hannon was very tough one to come against, certainly 90, 93, 94. They fell away a bit, but they were always competitive. Actually, you'll find he's probably one of the few that have beaten JOEYS through those premierships.
Was he able to source good players from different places? Why did he have such good talent there?
No, I think they
In
were
some years.
They were pretty well all homebred. He used to carry the balls around in a basket, and he loved videoing. He'd video, often his first grade, he'd have the video out and he'd do it himself. And he was, I understand, a very successful history teacher, I think.
Right.
No, he was just a very good operator that loved the game, instilled a great passion for the game, and also the boys loved him. They would have walked across hot coals for Tony Hannon.
Right.
They had enormous respect for him.
So there was a bit of pressure then taking after.
93 was pressure, but I would look back on it and say, as hard as it was for those kids, I think some people said it was the end of an era, but another boy said, no, sir, it's the start of an era. I agreed, because the way the school at Scott's, when they first started to walk off, they were a bit worried to go over for any acknowledgement, the whole school just walked behind them over to the dressing sheds at Scott's. And I thought, oh, geez.
Is that right?
Yeah, I said, you wouldn't find that in many schools.
No.
And they just walked alongside them back to the dressing shed, which was a very moving occasion, which...
Gee, that says a lot.
Yeah. And you started, after that, it made us all, Brother Charles and myself and Brother Bede, we were sitting in the car, had been driven back to the college, and we were reminiscing and, thinking of the years going, because the next year was 100 years of JOEYS rugby.
Oh, right. Not you're your own 94.
94. Yeah. And I said to Charlie, Brother Charles, oh, mate, we're just a bit slow in the forwards. And he said, yeah. He said, well, what about if we bring Radford in from the wing and make him an open side flanker? And I said, oh, well, if you do that, we're a real show. So Matt Radford came from the wing in 93 to open side in 94. Right? And then he played Australian schoolboys as an open side flanker.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Good Walgett boy.
Wow.
Yeah, no, it was...
Gosh, that's vision from the brother.
Well, Charlie had a great understanding of speed.
Right.
And actually he could almost select the winner of the GP Athletics aggregate within a few points.
Wow.
He knew all the placings, who was going to get fourth, who was going to get fifth. Brilliant. And with very limited eyesight, as I've said before, very limited.
Right.
A real saint. An absolute pleasure to have ever met the man and coached with him. Was very special.
The selection process, how do you do that?
First rugby?
Yeah. Like, you probably got a pretty good idea from the year before, but do you still have trial games? And
Yeah, we'll have internal trials this week. I've got a feeling the first might have Barker. Look, I'm not up with it, but certainly in the 15s where we are, we have internal trials this week. A's will play B's, C's and D's, E's and F's, and it'll probably mix in a bit of G's there as well. And the idea is you've got to try very hard to make sure it's just not the team before that because you've got new boys to start with. We'd have about 15 new boys coming to year 9.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Well, and that's not just always happened, has it? Or
it's pretty hard for a country family to send their boy away at 11 or 12.
Right. And
a lot of them, if they're not from isolated areas, will look at year 9 as a possibility, but then they've got to risk not getting in. But we try very hard, particularly if they're full boarders, to take them in year 9. And so you've got those boys that have come in. Got to really work very hard to make sure. And I think one thing I would say about the coaches through the ranks, they all want to have a good team. They want to have the best team.
Mm.
And so they work hard to make sure they've got the best. Yeah.
Is the Maris brothers, have you got other schools that are kind of related? There's not other talented athletes at other schools and they sort of go, maybe JOEYS will be good for you. Does that ever occur?
I think that would be fair to say. Having said that, in all my 40 years at JOEYS and plus and my time at the top of the rugby, I never was aware of anyone being encouraged to come.
Right.
However, having said that, did parents bring their sons along with the view of, well...
Maybe it's a good school for him.
For him.
Yeah.
He loves his rugby or he loves his athletics or his rowing or whatever, and he'd like to come to this school. That, I think, is different. That's a different sort of thing that we wanted to try to avoid, good rugby players at other schools being tapped on the shoulder. Look, if it happens, it happens. And if that becomes an opportunity for that boy, you've got to sit back and say good luck to him. But no, I think it'd be fair to say that sporty kids, they're that like their sport would be attracted to Joey's.
Right.
Yeah. If that. But having said that, you look at some of the...
Might be a little bit of a grey area, though.
Yeah, I think so. And the other thing is, I think, interestingly, rugby league clubs show a lot of interest in the GPS schools at the moment because of the talent that's there, you know.
Is that a good thing?
Don't think there's much you can do about it. If you look at Max Jorgensen, who's now playing for the Waratahs, I mean, I don't think his dad would mind me saying that there was a little bit of rugby league interest in him.
Right.
But he's chosen rugby, which we're very delighted with, and playing some good rugby at the moment. Yeah. Like if you look at Cameron Murray, when he was at Newington, he was selected for New South Wales under-18 rugby league side. But it was the day that they were playing JOEYS, and he stayed and played for Newington. And they beat us. He was a great schoolboy rugby player, by the way.
Right.
Yeah. So there's examples of that. One of the problems for, I think, the codes of rugby and rugby league is that because of the money involved, it is a bit of a career opportunity for some boys. So you've got to be careful, but if we're going to, I think...
Right, it's a career opportunity, yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
So you've got to be careful, and there's going to be opportunities for that. But at the same time, it should be the honour of playing in a school first 15 and second 15 should be priority for that period of their life.
For that
and
period.
I'm pretty sure, I can't remember Tom Wright missing a game through other stuff, for being playing for Manly or anything like that.
No, well, I think that was the point. He was offered it and it was kept quiet for the sake of the cohesion of the team. And I thought that was, putting the team first.
First, that's right.
Yeah.
And I think all clubs and teachers and adults and, NRL officials and rugby union officials have got to respect that. I think that it is that's a time in their life, where the boys that go along to watch and fill the stands every week, they want to be able to say, that's our team. That's the best team we can possibly have on the paddock. And while ever we're doing that, I think the clubs have got to look back and admire that. Admire that, yeah.
John, what about tough calls with dealing with schoolboys on selection? What's that like?
Oh, I think it's very difficult. Most times understood, occasionally not. I'd say in my time of doing it, it was pretty clear that the right selections were made. And where that was tricky, quite often you'd have a boy that played seconds one year and seconds the next year. That's just the way it was, because someone who was playing 15As or 16As has come up and he performs better. That
happens a bit at JOEYS, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like Tom Wright.
Tom Wright, yeah.
He played seconds in year 10 or something.
Well, Max Jorgensen had 3 years in the first.
Right.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone denied that. There's been that. So, look, selections are always difficult, but as long as you stay true and you've got to tell people, you've got to talk to people why you're doing it and how you're doing it, what you've got to do to improve to get up. And those sort of conversations, I'm sure at all schools it's very possible and they do it, was made easy at JOEYS, easier, because you went back to the boarding house with them. You brought it to the dorms and you could call them down during study and say, look, mate, we're making a bit of a change for this week. We're going to give so-and-so a run. And to be dropped from a JOEYS first 15 was always very difficult. But I remember one year Matt Schwager was halfback in the seconds in 04 and halfback again in 05 because the halfback from the first was back. And he walked back from the park with me one afternoon. I said, oh, Matty, you must be really devastated. You would have been looking at first. He said, oh, yeah. He said, but don't worry, Rito. We'll make sure that this is the best second 15 that JOEYS has ever had. So, and they were red hot. They were champions. They were really good. And he went, and after the Kings game where we had a very successful season, I walked across the park with one of the GPS selectors, who I knew because I'd previously done selecting with him. And I said, mate, I don't know how you're off for halfbacks, but if our bloke in the seconds isn't the second best halfback in the GPS, I'll give it away. He said, oh, we can't pick him. I said, I understand. So anyway, they did pick him, reserved for GPS thirds. Got a run.
Wow.
The next week he played GPS seconds. The next week New South Wales seconds.
Wow.
Australia A, Australian schoolboys from JOEYS seconds.
Right.
And the story there is he was disappointed, but he wasn't going to spit the dummy.
Right.
I will make this the best second 15 JOEYS I've ever had.
Yeah.
So those sort of stories, and that's why you've got to make it an honour too to play second 15. You've got to. We're all going to watch the seconds too.
What about talent in the schoolboys, John? Is that an obvious thing, or what are you looking for with talent?
Never my forte, I don't think, but I did see people bring players on, and I think players did come on. Like sometimes you looked at your teams on paper and think, oh God, this is going to be tricky, but they rise for the occasion. And they do get some very good coaching, to coach alongside brother Anthony Boyd, Steve Knight, Jeremy Ticehurst, and they have the likes of David Kelleher, Andrew
Good
Blake.
coaching.
Good coaches. Coaching.
Coaching's a big thing, yeah?
Yeah, definitely. And to work alongside those people, also knowing that they've had good coaches as A grades coming through. Right. And that's the sort of depth you need. That on top of the regular drilling, the simple things, that you do day in, day out, your warm-up drills, just improve. The fact that those boys, by the time they've made the first 15, have probably watched the JOEYS first 15 play 30 or 40 times. They've had, they've been able to point out who they want to play like. So we're very lucky there. We also, I think, probably some of the biggest differences in schoolboy rugby over the years is the strength and conditioning. Jeremy Ticehurst, who's coached rugby at JOEYS for many years and A-grade teams, he's now in charge of that at JOEYS. And we've got a tremendous facility for getting boys fit and strong.
Were you a big planner? Would you plan out your training sessions?
No, I'd have to give credit to Tony Boyd again then, Brother Anthony. Every minute of the whole hour was at this time we moved to there. If we go from defence,
is that right?
Seconds will go to defence. We'll go to IRM in Rockingham Morley. We'll come back, we'll have forwards and backs will split up. We'll do line-outs, we'll do scrums. We'll do
for 2 hours?
On a Wednesday, 2 hours. Most every other afternoon, except for Friday, which we handed over to the captains.
So if you guys, were you a specialist in backs or forwards?
I was forwards, yes.
Yeah. So when it comes to a scrum, for example, what would you guys do? Say you've got, would you do 15 minutes, 20 minutes?
Okay, well, yeah, this is probably Andrew Blades and Tony Boyd particularly. They'd start off in pairs, just getting the body shape right.
Right.
Then you'd put your front row down, body shape right, your tight five down, body shape right, then the whole scrum into the machine. Then you'd come away from that. Then you'd have live scrums, and then you'd bring. Then if that was going well, you'd bring your half back over. So it'd be a big build up, and it'd be nothing to head over there and spend 30 to 40, maybe 50 minutes on scrums. Yeah, so there was that part.
Packing a lot of scrums,
and your seconds got so much better for going against the first. I mean, that if you look at the premierships that I was involved with, the seconds was because we trained with the first. We just got better and better.
Because you won about 7
we had
titles. When was that? When were you doing
I
that?
took over the seconds in 98 through to 2007, I think. 98 to 2007. Yeah.
Right.
Mind you, there were some great players at that time. Right in the middle of that was the Curtly Beale era.
Yeah, when was that? So Brother Anthony Boyd comes back and coaches that era. Is that right?
He came back in 97.
Right.
Rugby were very strong to start with in that era. We got very strong again around about 98, 99, 2000. We were either premiers or runners up, and then Curtly, we 2001. Then Curtly came in 2004 as a year 10 boy. He'd been through the age groups. And he was there for 4, 5, 6.
Right.
In fact, I would say...
And what, did they win every year? Or?
Yeah. I would say that he actually... And he was good, very brilliant, no question of that. But I thought his best year was when he was in year 10.
Really?
Yeah, that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
He was totally uninhibited of the whole thing. He just had the ball on a string. Whereas A5 was very good. They started to mark up.
And he was in 5'8".
He was 5'8". They started to mark up on him a bit, obviously. And he'd already played for the Australian schoolboys and all of that. So
how do you mean? You mean under 16s or something?
No, he'd played Australian schoolboys in 05, 06.
Right.
Yeah, he was handy. Yeah, there's no question of that. Oh, look, and a great kid too.
What does it mean at the schoolboy level when you've got a star like that? Do you sort of... What does it mean? Does it make coaching a lot more pleasant?
Oh, yeah, and he became a very good instructor to the other backs in both back lines. He actually came back and coached for a while if we had a camp. Oh, look at your Matt Burks, dear me, extraordinary. Your Graham Thompsons, they just, they were very good players. Steve Devine played 10 tests for the All Blacks from '94. Berkey would probably be, now on paper, obviously be with what happened after school. And he's Gordon Bray's just named him as one of these immortals. Actually, yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, and yet it's.
Did he play first 3 years or?
No, he only played 2.
Yeah.
I was given the 16 A's in 88, 89, and I had Matt Burke, Peter Jorgensen, and Scott Fay for one training session. Then they all went.
They all went where?
All went to the first.
Right.
Oh, Scott Fay went to the seconds, and Berkey and Jorgo went to the first. So they skipped the 16s, but they were year 11. But they
were a bit younger.
They were young,
right?
Yeah, that's right. They didn't play 16s.
Interesting.
Yeah, no. So that was a great era. There was no question of that. And that was the era of probably quick ruck ball and fullback in, And with Burke, although he played centre some of the years too, but no, he was a very good player. No question of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what is the Joeys? Randwick has got a bit of a running game. What about Joeys?
Well, from what you can look at, Henry was very big on running the football.
Yeah.
We were too. If you look at highlights around your vintage, when you were playing the game, it was based on quick ruck ball, back out to backs, and then a forward being part of the hit up or something like that. But these days, forward pick up and drive game and one off the ruck and stuff like that. It's changed the game. The Northern Hemisphere play it that way. Everyone's got to play it. The All Blacks are very good at it. We're getting much better at it. So it has changed the game. And you have various pods. And look, it's very talented. It's very skillful. They hang on to the ball. But probably the purists of the world would like to see it get a bit wider, a bit quicker. Having said that, you still see a lot of wingers scoring tries. You still see it. So it does get out there. But you've got to win the battle up front, and they all know that. I mean, if you 1 to 8 plays well, your backs will score tries because they give you the go forward. Yeah.
Grassroots, the school system's so important for the national side, even, right? Not just Joeys, but it's very important, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we'll be strong in the 13As this year, and I wouldn't know where they've all come from. One thing about Joeys is because you don't have a primary of a cohort of 150 boys in Year 7, you might have over 120, 130 different primary schools. But having said that, I think you'll find most of the rugby pre-Joeys is club rugby. I haven't got the whole facts on that, but I can't, bar Riverview and the schools that have got primaries, I don't think there's a whole heap of rugby being played in primary schools.
Right.
I think Riverview probably do, Kings probably do too. But we seem to be able to, and so this probably defeats what I've been talking. We have those 150 kids come in, and therefore, but we still get a very strong 13As from the start of the season.
Is discipline the bedrock, the cornerstone to a good rugby side? Do you think, John?
Oh, I think any sport.
Any sport.
Any sport. If you haven't got it, if you haven't got principles, if you haven't got structures, I think.
Do you think that's what boys get the most out of sport, maybe in general?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. It's
because without discipline, you can't really do much at all, can you?
No. And that's why I think it's very valuable that these boys are just all the way through have had, good teachers that are good disciplinarians that understand boys, that encourage them. And then if they have to be critical, they're critical in a positive way. And as a result, the boys always speak very highly of their coaches, and they really enjoy it. They really enjoy playing rugby, which is a bit of an anomaly in a way, because I don't know that they really enjoy watching rugby on TV. Five Nations or Six Nations has been great, but quite often you'd walk through the dorms and there might be a Super 15 game on or something, and they'll be watching the Rugby League or the AFL. So there's that, but there's no question will be going on over there at the park now that they'll be playing their rugby, and they run to training.
Right.
They get out, they just run across to training, and probably introduced more in recent years. They have uniform for training as well. And
right,
but
haven't you always had the red and black sort of thing?
Yeah, first and seconds have been. Now they've all got a blue top with cerise barring, and that's what they wear to training. And
with your coaching, would you change your strategy week to week, depending on your opposition?
Well, when you're at the first and second grade level, yes,
you're doing that.
Yeah, definitely.
So you're watching tapes,
watching tapes, and I don't know how it happened, but there was 1 or 2 years there when I was coaching the seconds with Brian Sutherland. We were able to go and watch a couple of schools, whether they played early or something. But there was certainly, even forget the tapes, we were able to go and watch.
Right.
So you've got to do that. But I don't think your game changes much. You have your special calls or special moves, and if they work, they tend to work all the time.
Right.
And you've got to defend. And you've really, it's a game where you've got to encourage the teams to really talk. As soon as you stop talking, you start losing. And any good coach will try to take the talk out of the other team. Like get on the front foot and keep talking them up. Make it look like it's they're running into a bit of an ambush if you keep the talk up. So talking's very big. Yeah, definitely.
For a game in that sort of thing, is that a big part of it?
Yeah, most definitely.
Is it?
Oh, most definitely.
Who was good at doing that?
Oh, the talking?
Yeah.
Oh, you'd always ask the captain. One thing JOEYS was able to do is meet regularly with their teams, and even like when I, of course, at full boarding, and Brother Anthony would have been the same, we'd meet on a Friday evening or a Friday afternoon, and you'd talk about what we had to do the next day to win this game. We're going to be tight. It's going to be difficult. We're going to have to do this. We're going to have to make our tackles, all that sort of stuff. And we did that not just before they ran on. We did that prior, either the night before or the afternoon before.
Which brings me to sports psychology. Would you look at that, visualisation and that sort of thing?
Well, visualisation's huge.
Did you do that at JOEYS?
Yeah, visualisation's very huge.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
So how would you go about doing that?
I used to finish most sessions, particularly with rowing and rugby, that don't underestimate visualising what you've got to do. With the rowing, I used to say, visualise yourself rowing, and you're always winning. You're always rowing through someone. So visualise that. With rugby, you're visualising the tackle, you're visualising the hit, you're visualising the scrum, you're visualising the line out. And I think it plays an extremely important role with all sport and at all levels, but particularly schoolboys.
Why is that? The formation?
The formation, I think, and also the fact that when if they get into bed of a night time and if they're having trouble sleeping, the challenge is the scrolling, and I don't think they can do that at JOEYS either, but if they're having trouble sleeping, to play the game, dream about the game and play the game, visualise the game. And quite often it pays off. It definitely pays off, and the good ones do it extremely well. And then
Did anyone bring that into JOEYS at all in a big way?
Well, again, Brother Anthony was a big one on visualisation as well. I didn't coach with the others, but he was very strong on that.
There's crossovers between these coaches.
Well, we all learn
visualisation.
Yeah, we all learn
planning.
from each other.
Yeah.
I remember I had the 16s, and I used to quite look across to number one and watch Jeff Schwager coaching, and he always had great drills. Always had great drills. So
what was your favourite sort of training drill, do you think?
Well, we went through a few.
Would you play each other a lot?
Semi-opposed on a Wednesday.
Semi-opposed.
On a Wednesday afternoon, there was always a period of time where they'd take control of it a bit and do turnovers and make sure that we weren't going to belt each other. That we were going to make injuries.
Right.
But we certainly valued that, and we certainly valued the camaraderie in terms of first and seconds, and the teamwork, and that we all had one common goal. The most important thing was the first 15. Then the seconds had to fit in with that, but they used to fit in very well and be a better team as a result of it.
One thing about rugby, I think, you tell me if I'm wrong, but support play, backing up, it's not a natural thing. It has to be learned. Would you agree with that?
Yep.
Because the thing with Joeys that I noticed, there's just always another Joeys jersey there.
Yeah.
Just the support play is next level.
Yeah.
Would you be drilling that?
They have very consistently. They'd have midlining, which is and a group of 8 might be backs and forwards, and that is when the ball would go down the middle of a pack and you turn left, pass the ball left and right. That would have been done odds and evens, for example, not forwards and backs, just odds and evens. You'd do that. Then you'd have outside support, was a very big one as well. That you would the ball would go forward, then someone would go outside or on the outside or left side and look to see if we could get the ball out there and open it up a bit, and then just lateral passing. And once you go forward, if you go forward, you can support. If you're going backwards, it's very hard. So you had to go forward.
Right.
And in rugby, and they're all very strong on it.
Front foot.
If you've got the ball, you're going forward. And if you watch a team, and
you're going forward.
And if you watch it and you say they're in trouble because they've won 4 phases and they haven't moved.
Right.
Yeah. But there's some good ones.
Because people sort of can tend to go backwards to create space for themselves.
Well,
creates problems though.
Passing behind the gain line a lot of the time, and you think, gosh, someone's going to have to take this forward.
Right.
And you need a good centre. And
passing behind the gain line.
Yeah, you don't want to. And you know you're in trouble if you haven't got to the gain line after winning the ball on 4 or 5, because no one's taking you forward. There's a couple of that Angus Bell in the New South Wales, he's a good forward. He gives you metres every time. They've got some good forwards there. But that's the sort of thing. And
that's the sort of thing.
You need to be going forward. And once you're going forward, then it's a pass backwards to support. So it's really important. You hold the ball, you go forward and support. Those 3 things.
Right.
And turnovers are crucial. It's just crucial. And you've got to avoid the turnovers. So you've got to do a lot of drills of going up and placing the ball and placing it long, and the cavalry's got to arrive. You've got to have a back row that when that player hits the ground, you're cleaning out. And if that doesn't happen, then you get the pilferers in there and they get the...
And low body height?
Oh, definitely low body height, yeah.
Because that's the other thing. There's just... The cavalry arrives and it's just been... That's just been drilled so well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think probably if there's a penalty for holding on, I think it's more often than not is the cavalry didn't arrive. He's waiting for you, and if you're not there, you got to get pinged because you have to place it out. But you've got to go forward. And if you mention how do you support, well, if you're going forward, it's easy.
If you're going forward,
you've got to go forward. Yeah.
If it's going forward, it's easy.
Yeah.
But that is phenomenal.
Yep.
Some of those skill levels, that the execution of those tides is just.
Yeah.
I've seen better skill levels from Joeys. I know it's a different level. It's a different game. It's probably a different pace, but the skill level was just extraordinary.
Yeah, they do. It's certainly what you've watched, and I think in recent years, there's been great teams. Some of the Kings have been very good recently. Scots are always pretty good.
Have you been winning as much in the last... I haven't, not a close observer in the last little while. Has your success rate changed at all with the change of the school, or is it not linked at all? From all boarding to the new school, which we all have to make changes, has there been a change in your success rate?
No, well, I wouldn't put it down to anything that we've done differently, actually. I'd put it down to the fact that schools want to win the first 15 premiership.
It's got more competitive.
It's got more competitive.
Yeah.
Home and away has changed things. Very hard to get a championship when you're home and away.
Is it? Why is that?
Well, you've got to. You might if you play, you've
got to play twice.
Twice. You've got to play one at Scots, one at JOEYS, one at Review, one at JOEYS, and so on. I think that's made it difficult. The other thing is, if I often believe that there's not much different from one year's first 15 at JOEYS to the next. However, the opposition might be different.
Right. Okay.
Like I thought,
they might have an outstanding year or something.
I thought Shaw's team this year was outstanding. They had a great fight. We beat them in the first round, though, but then they came out in the second round and they won it on their own. And their 5'8" fullback, their back row were excellent, and so they're well coached. And I think in full credit to them. They've developed, in their first 15 anyway, a very good team, and they'll probably be very strong again this year. So that was out of our control a bit.
Right.
And so there are other factors.
Other factors.
Yeah, but I don't know. I'd look at Joey's first 15s and I just think, well, on that particular year, you were just outgunned by a better team. You know?
Yeah. If you had to name one thing that you think has made Joey's different over the years, I'm sure it's a lot of factors, but what do you think the one thing is?
If you
had to say one thing.
Okay, and it's all related, but I think a real strength of ours is the whole school watching the first 15 every Saturday. If you said one thing.
Right.
There's lots of other factors.
Yeah.
If you're allowed me to elaborate
is that right? Yeah, elaborate.
Well, I would say the fact that school teachers and boarding staff take them to those games and are with them and sitting with us in the stand.
Because there's always a solid Joey's crowd, not so much the home side. Sort of thing.
Which I think for young boys, 1,000 boys, to be sitting there having a meat pie, a soft drink and a Mars bar and a piece of fruit, sitting in the stand together, or whether it be out on the hill at Kings or at Leichhardt Oval, I think, I only had girls, but I think I'd be pretty pleased if that was my boy on a Saturday.
Yeah.
And he can do his gaming when he gets home, but there's friendships that are formed from that. And the fact that you've got to be there when they lose and you've got to be there when they win. And I think that's hugely important from an education point of view. And being able to acknowledge a school that wins it and say, too good for us, and be able to accept that, I think, is huge. Yeah. So that's the single biggest thing.
I did do that, apart from one time when you were coaching against High.
Right.
I had to go, it was 94.
Yeah.
I had to go, I think it was 94.
Yeah.
Or it might have been the 93 side.
Right.
Yeah. Did you play High at Hunters Hill in 94?
Yes.
Yeah. Me and my mate snuck out and went and watched that game.
Oh, did he? Right.
We were trying to look like Joey's boys.
That's right. You could have been more than.
But that was an amazing game.
It was an amazing game.
Remind me what happened there in the end. You won it.
We won. Yeah. We were down 10-3 at half time and won 33-10.
Right. Wow. What do you think your sweetest victory was?
That was big.
Yeah.
Scots in 94.
Oh, Scots in 94.
They had us down. They had us down, and with minutes to go.
So they had a good year again in 94?
Yeah, they did. They probably weren't as strong, but if they'd won that game, they would have been giant premiers with High, I think. No, 94. Yeah, because High had lost to us and they'd lost one, and we'd drawn one. So we had to win to hang on to it. And it was just a great game of rugby. Really, it was.
So you were champions in 95.
Yeah.
But 94 sounds like it was a bit more
undefeated premiers.
Which one?
94. Drew against Shaw.
Right. But so 94 was your.
That was probably. There's probably been two great highlight wins at Joey's in terms of the significance.
Yeah.
In 1981.
Yeah.
They won. That was 100 years of Joey's.
Right.
In 1994, they won as 100 years of rugby.
Right.
And in 1981, they won beat Scots with a field goal on the hooter, on the bell.
Right.
And the field goal, everyone was screaming out, run it, run it. I was only in my 20s, thank God. But anyway, chap Peter Tonkin, whose father was a Wallaby, Arthur Tonkin, kicked a field goal. Everyone says 40 out, it might have been 30, I don't know, but it was a long way. And anyway, that became a bit of folklore. Anyway, the rumour would have it that the statue of Mary turned and faced face number one, but that's not. Anyway, it's a bit of folklore. What's interesting, the chap who kicked the field goal was Peter Tonkin from Armidale. Anyway, 2011, Peter Tonkin's down for his 30-year reunion. He comes to my office and says, "Oh, John, would you mind if tomorrow I sit with the boys and wear my blazer? Because I came in year 11 and I've never actually cheered for the school. I was in the first both years." I said, the boys would be privileged. And so we're walking from my office along the corridor and heading over towards the park, and 2 year 9 boys come toward me, and I thought, I'll just create a bit of conversation here with these boys and introduced them to Peter Tonkin. And I said to these two Year 9 boys, they both didn't get it right, but one did. I said, what happened here in 1981? Boys, 100 years of Joeys. He said, Joeys won the comp on a field goal against Scots. I said, oh, really? I said, you wouldn't know who kicked that field goal. And the little bloke says, bloke by the name of Peter Tonkin. And I said, meet Peter Tonkin 30 years later.
Wow.
So folklore is huge, you know. Right. And they probably, see, the boy could have been from the bush, I'm not sure, but it was quite a famous moment. Yeah,
right.
And people wrote about it and there were poems about it. So it kept appearing. Yeah, because we hadn't won it for a while. 70...
is that right?
No, we hadn't. 79, we hardly won a game. 80, we lost a couple. So 81, being 100 years of Joeys, was a very significant year. Very significant year. And to win on a field goal. And that became folklore. There was no question of that. And so it was lovely. He was quite chuffed that the boys knew who it was. And a very shy man. He's a primary school teacher at Armidale. Very shy man, yeah.
So that moment, and then you're saying 94
94.
as well.
Oh, look, I think they're all very precious. But
Yeah.
to win in your 100 years of the school and 100 years of Joey's rugby was also very special.
Right.
And I think had we not, I mean, it would have been brushed under the carpet a bit, but it did add to the occasion. There was no question of that.
Well, it was big for you too, because like even though you were against that huge, monstrous Scots side in '93, it'll be a bit of pressure there for you.
Oh, definitely.
And it would have been a relief.
Yeah, and players came on too, you know. They rose to that occasion. If you look at Radford coming in from the wing, you look at Steve Devine, you know, never played halfback before. He came from Boggabri, ended up playing 10 tests for the All Blacks.
Yeah.
You look at Kieran Shepherd, Ryan Rogan, Mark Wheeldon, Michael Griffin. They were all, Greg Thompson, they were all handy. And the forwards had very little depth. Most of them were third graders the year before.
Right.
Yeah, so... No,
not a huge side, was it?
No, they're tiny. No, they're tiny team. And
Joey's sides they're not always massive. They're not a huge size. The Kings boys will be big traditionally. Yeah. Joey's not so much as much. Is that right, or...?
Yeah, they've always had... Sometimes they've had a bit of height. Well, I know all the coaches, and Brother Anthony was no exception. Speed with your forwards.
Speed with your forwards.
If you were going to go wide, if you're going to go wide in the modern game, you have to have speed, because if you get caught out there, there's every chance there'll be a turnover or a penalty or something. So you do have to, and if you look at teams...
Did he love to go wide? And
well, in those days...
Work it, did he?
With the quality backs that they had over those eras... and certainly, you know, look at Matt Burton. Kirtley had an ability to make a break in close. He was a brilliant receiver first off the ruck. There was no question of that. And he had a couple of really good back rowers that had played with him from the 13s, 14s, 15s. Might have missed a year when he first went to the first. There were, you know, players that you probably don't hear much of, but have got on with different parts of their life. There was a back rower in Kirtley's era by the name of James McMahon, and he just scored off. He just run off his hip, scoring tries. He just knew where he was going to be, you know.
Do you think instinct or learned skill? What do you think?
Oh, I think a lot of both. I think
a lot of both.
A lot of people. You get taught.
You need talent plus back it up.
Yeah, you got to back it up, and I think probably, I think the ability to. You know, to have the core of your first 15 playing A grade on the way through, which I think most schools would have, certainly adds to what you end up with at the top end. Yeah.
Sorry, come again.
Well, you know, if a core of your first 15 is like 7 or 8 of them are moving through the ages and eventually end up at the top in the first 15.
Right.
And you do have that quite common. It's quite common that an A grader will... you know, go through and ultimately play first grade and have 5 or 6 of his mates with him. I think that helps. You know, I think probably then once developing that skill, their talent through the drills is very significant.
Developing that talent.
That's right, exactly.
Talent that's been developed is dangerous.
I think
is that
so.
right?
Yeah, I think so. You see players come on, you know, and that you think is, you know, they were. I tell you, the great breeding ground for first 15 players at Joey's is 16Bs. If you're in year 10 in the 16Bs, So then you go to opens for another year. You might play thirds or fourths, and then the next year your first or second. And that a lot of them are B graders. If it went into the Hall of Fame at JOEYS,
is that right? Why do you say that?
I think because they get 2 years in the opens, and I think because there's the A's and B's work very closely together on the way through. So if you're a B grader, in 1 year you're getting good coaching and developing good skills and being part of some very good players. There's no question of that.
Is JOEYS a believer in the running game? Yeah.
Oh, I think you'd like to think you'd try and win in any way, but there's no question that when you look at some of the backs we've had over the years, we're very excited about getting the ball wide. And you can, even in the modern game, you can do it, particularly if you win good line-out ball, and you're able to hold their back line back for 10 metres and so on. If you can do that, you can certainly open the game up. Yeah.
What do you think makes a good schoolboy coach?
I've worked with people that have come in and bring a particular skill, your Andrew Blades, your Dave Kelleher's. I think discipline. Discipline, I would say.
In being able to instill that.
Yeah, I would say I've worked with the best there in terms of not just discipline for the team, but discipline for the school. That you have high standards and that carries on into your sport, I think is very important. And we've been lucky to have senior teachers and senior leaders in the school very much involved with the rugby program and sport program total.
Right. It's important to have that.
Oh, it is. Yeah. And I think the challenge for all schools today is to maintain that, because pretty good opportunities out there for professionals, rugby coaches and rowing coaches to get into schools and be part of a school program. And, if you go back to the Jaika Travers of the world, and if he wanted a good, or even Michael Morgan, if he wanted a good rowing coach, he made them teachers. Bob Sherlaw became a teacher at Shaw, a woodwork teacher. Michael Morgan became a PE teacher, so they could see what was important.
Oh, okay.
And JOEYS has been fortunate, particularly with rugby, that we've had very good teachers and part of the administration of the school very much involved with the rugby program and the overall sport program. Miles Newman coached with me for a couple of years, and he was the director of co-curricular at the same time. And so he had his overall view of sport. Then he was coming over and helping me with the seconds, and he was a great coach.
Right, right. This is a Michael Morgan, and Michael Morgan's coming up a bit today. But he said it's hard to become a champion. It's even harder to stay a champion.
I think probably if you look at the 90s at JOEYS when we won 5 in a row, there was things brewing.
What do you mean by that?
Oh, I think schools were really throwing a lot at us, Right. In fact, there was a very good...
You mean they were getting better, or...?
They were getting better, and they were wanting good players and good coaches. There's no question of that. I remember...
Yeah, so you set the benchmark, but then they're coming for you.
Yeah. I don't think I'd embarrass Scots if I say this, because Spiros Savros, who was writing for the Herald, or one of the papers in the 90s, and I got the article. Anyway, he was leaving Scots in 93, and they walked behind a couple of JOEYS old boys and said, "Oh, well," he said, "that could be the end of JOEYS, how disappointing." And he caught up with them. He said, "You shouldn't be disappointed." To these JOEYS old boys, you shouldn't be disappointed, because Scots went to such great lengths to beat you.
Yeah,
you should be proud.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
And you hear comments like that, and you hear people that like Jeremy Ticehurst, who ended up coaching rugby at JOEYS. He would often say the reason he came to JOEYS, he wanted to teach at JOEYS, was because of what he witnessed in 1993.
Wow.
He said, that's the type of school I would like to teach at.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So that's all right.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Because, there's something special about that.
And they were a great team, Scots. I wouldn't take anything from them. They were well drilled. They played a really good brand of rugby.
The 93.
93 side.
Yeah.
In fact, there's a lovely
Because Bowman was a local. He was...
Bowman was from out near...
Oh, a border, right.
Border. Oh, he was a border. He was there. But there's a lovely... not Gunnedah. I can't think of the name of... But one of those towns around there. And the halfback for JOEYS was from the same area. And after the Scots JOEYS game in '94, Tom Bowman's up here and Steve Devine's there, and they're both hugging each other. They're both clearly great friends.
Right.
Yeah, he was from Barraba, actually. Yeah, that's right.
Clearly good friends.
Really good friends. And that is one of the enormous features of schoolboy rugby. I'm sure it's club rugby too. But a lot of those boys that play against each other and play together at clubs, they become great friends.
Right.
They become great friends. They have lots of things in common and lots of great experiences. And so we're very fortunate to have that sort of culture in all our schools.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you do feel like you're playing more than just the first 15. At JOEYS, you're playing the whole school in a spirit way.
Well, when you consider that the Opens go down to about 12th or 13th, and every age group go down to Gs.
Yeah, Gs.
Yeah. And but having said that, no, not last year.
Who do they play if other schools don't have Gs?
Oh, they don't.
They don't.
Well, you've got me on another thing.
Yeah.
I think Australian rugby is going to suffer a bit because...
Why?
Well, we go to Gs, but our Gs will often have to play other schools' Es and Fs or even Ds. Like my Fs, where our Fs sometimes have to play Cs, Bs or As.
Right.
Just because. And I don't know what the answer to that is, and I don't know. I mean, culture is a big thing, and why so many boys at JOEYS want to play rugby. It's quite extraordinary. And and I think it goes back to, obviously, your brother Henry's, the good coaching, and they love playing rugby for JOEYS. And it doesn't always result in wins, but they're probably going to win on any Saturday. We probably win about 80%.
Do you?
Yeah, on any Saturday.
Gee, that's
extraordinary.
Yeah.
Isn't it? And you've got to remember that sometimes those have been upgraded. Like you've had to play school Cs and Ds if you've got the Fs.
That is extraordinary.
And a B grade will often be asked to play school's A grades. So it is quite extraordinary. No, we're very fortunate.
I couldn't get over the amount of wallabies that you've got.
Yeah, quite extraordinary.
You've won the premiership 57
times.
times.
I think it's 57 times now. Very roughly, I got that. We also have 57 wallabies, so that figure might be marginally out. But I presume that that would include Tom Wright and Max Jorgensen, I'm sure. Yeah.
57 premierships.
And 57.
And 57. Well, that's
as
huge.
we speak, yeah. Yeah,
that's including sort of touring squads, and you've got your standouts like Burke and Beale. And
that's where there could be not quite accurate with that, because apparently to be a Wallaby you have to play for the Wallabies, not just tour with them.
Right.
But so there's a bit of a bone of contention with that. Might be marginally.
They had green and gold tracksuits given to them, right?
Yeah, that's right. I think I'd say I'm a Wallaby
57,
if I got
57. That's huge.
Yeah.
That is huge.
Yeah, no, we're very lucky in that regard.
That is a real Wallaby breeding ground. It really is.
It is. I think. Does
anyone else rival JOEYS in the country? Like you hear sort of things in Nudgee.
Nudgee are big.
Yeah.
Nudgee.
Yeah.
Nudgee.
Have they got a similar sort of thing?
Yeah, they certainly.
Culture?
Certainly they would. I've only done a tour of Nudgee. I thought their boarding was very impressive. Their facilities, the gymnasium's almost like an institute of sport. So no, look, it's got a very good culture there in all sports. I think, they've done extremely well in Nudgee, and no, you wouldn't begrudge them. We've never played them. I'd love to.
Really?
No,
never have.
Never played Nudgee. We've played Gregory.
Why not?
I don't know. I don't know why that hasn't come about.
Why wouldn't the winner of each play? Sort of, in the rowing, you get a chance to do that.
Yeah, I think it'd be a good idea. Actually, I think it'd be good to consider that. I think the dates are all a bit different for rugby. I think
the dates are.
The dates are different. I've got a feeling that Nudgee haven't started their rugby yet, and we're about to start. But I just don't know how the dates don't line up very well for it. And the GPS competition up there doesn't line up very well with ours. There is a complication, I'm not quite sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
Who do you think was the greatest rugby brain out of the brothers from JOEYS? Who do you think the best brain was?
Well, I didn't work with Henry, but obviously...
You think it was, yeah?
Yeah, probably. Obviously, if you look at statistics,
Just go back to that tactical genius a bit thing. Yeah, if you look at statistics, yeah. So what are his statistics like?
Oh, well, 21st grade premierships, something like 10 wallabies, couple of kangaroos as well thrown in there.
Right.
Yeah, no. I think obviously if you go for statistics, he's clearly the best coach any school has ever had.
Right.
And probably the best coach of rugby union.
Wow.
Because if you take club rugby, it's a different thing.
Was he a player?
Look, he was from New Zealand, so if he was, he might have played there. Again, I'm not really sure. He was a New Zealander and a primary school teacher.
Do you think that era set the cornerstone, the foundation for your tradition?
Oh, definitely. And if you look at all the schools, there's someone. If you take L.C. Robson at Shaw.
Oh, there's always someone who lays that foundation, is there?
I think so. You take Michael Morgan at Newington. And he was very strong on discipline, and he didn't put up with much rubbish. He wouldn't have put up with it.
Wouldn't he?
No.
Didn't suffer fools.
No, that's exactly right. No, good operator. See, I think they've all taken it forward. If you look at Terry Curley, Terry Curley in the 70s, he took my side to New Zealand in the 70s, and we arrived in New Zealand in 72. And the regard that New Zealand rugby had for Terry Curley was quite exceptional. He was the Wallaby fullback through the 50s and early 60s.
Right.
And the red carpet was laid down everywhere we went. And he was a great coach. I think he came up against some brilliant Sydney High sides, but then he won a couple too as well, with the likes of Steve Williams, who went on to be captain of the Wallabies. He had some good teams. Then... so Jeffrey Schwager brought a lot to it. He'd been deputy headmaster. And then I think probably topping it off nicely was Tony Boyd, Brother Anthony. He's a great coach, great disciplinarian, and great one for the
disciplinarian.
Yeah, and a great one of teachers of the game and had a great eye for it. But in recent years, Tim Anderson, Greg Thompson, Rob Hahn, and the people that assisted him, Jeremy Tyser, Steve Knight. Steve Knight was a dual international. He brought a lot to it. And the people that he got around him, Andrew Blades was very good as well.
With your strengthening and conditioning, did you do endurance sort of weights or would you do heavy weights?
Once the season proper started, John Healy was very opposed to it.
To heavy weights?
Yeah. He was very opposed. He used to argue like they're 17, 18-year-old boys. They're not Waratahs.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact...
So you do some weights early pre-season?
In the pre-season. Yeah. If anything, he'd only agree to recovery weights on a Sunday night. That you might, if you've got a few bruises and bumps, some stretching and recovery weights. He generally believed that, if they had to play fresh, that they weren't adults. And he was very adamant about that. He would say...
But he would have been tough at points, I guess.
Endurance and body... sit-ups and push-ups. And
a lot of that.
Oh, a lot of that, yeah. He made... I think he generally introduced to the boys self-belief. He said, you do the work, you'll be right. If you're lazy...
Do you think the work provides evidence for the mind to believe in the belief? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Because you can't just sit there and wish a victory about, can you?
No.
You've got to back it up with evidence.
That's right. And the good coaches instill that. I think they're good coaches through the way they talk to you, through the way... I think probably some of the best coaching I've seen is when teams have been down at half-time and there's an emphasis, calm down, there's no panic here. You're in touch and you've only had 40% of the ball or something like that. Get 50%, you win this game. The ones that will be able to tell you what you've got to do to get them back on top in this game. And a lot of the time, Joey's teams over the years have come from behind.
Really?
Yeah. And that's because I think their instructions and advice at half time has been very good.
Right.
They very rarely. No, there probably has been times you can look it up, but they seem to be able to come out in the second half and better and well drilled to go on with the game.
Right. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Do you think rugby builds character or reveals it?
I think all sport builds it and shows it.
Builds it and shows it.
Yeah, I think so. I think you want to get your teams and crews and in a position that they're better for the experience, that they're going to take any lessons they've learnt in this particular season or competition, that they're better for it. It won't solve all their problems in life, but it'll certainly lay a foundation. And one of the things is, I think all the coaches I've mentioned here wouldn't be the slightest bit interested if all it was winning a premiership.
Yeah, right.
They've all seen a bigger picture in all our sport. But, with people that I've worked with in rugby and rowing, the two, if you talk about Michael Morgan, brother Anthony Boyd, that was always a very strong feature, and I don't think
what was that?
It
wasn't just
the
about
experiences,
yeah.
the lessons that you learn through doing this will hold you in good stead going forward.
John, on another tact, what do you think underpins the JOEYS review rivalry?
Okay, well,
because it's there.
Well,
it was the calendar, the diary.
Well, if you look at, I went to Villa Maria Primary School, and most of my classmates went to review, and some went to.
When you say Villa Maria, where was that?
Villa Maria is right beside JOEYS.
Right. Yes.
Yeah,
what's that connection again?
Well, it was a Maris Brothers school. It's not anymore. It's
Okay.
just the primary school next to JOEYS.
Okay.
And quite often the review boys would leave at year 5 and go over to review.
Okay.
And anyone going on to JOEYS or Holy Cross, they know each other very well. Now that's not restricted to Sydney or local primary schools. If you go out to the bush, Moree, Narrabri, Wagga, the smaller country towns, there's a lot of both review and JOEYS families.
Yeah. Right.
And so they know each other and they're friends. And so I think it goes back to the knowledge of each other. And it goes...
Oh, do you think so?
Oh, yeah. In fact, what became quite legendary by the time I was at JOEYS, they would talk about the two legends. One was the fullback for JOEYS and the other was fullback for review. Terry Curley was the fullback for JOEYS and Jim Linehan was the fullback for Riverview.
Yeah.
And those two became household names almost in those days.
Yeah.
There's two, one at JOEYS, one for Riverview, and I think they had some mammoth clashes. I think probably the spoils were even, but there's that sort of thing. There's other examples where I think probably just when you run out, you know half the team because you knew them before they even went. So I went to school at Villa Maria with the Curtin boys, with Frank Curtin, and we ended up playing. We rode against each other and played rugby against each other, and we're very good friends. So and there's a lot of that.
Yeah,
there's a lot of that, and they're both.
Do you think Jesuit Maris thing as well? Or?
Oh, look, they're two great schools. There's no question of that, but both very different.
Yeah.
Both very different.
Yeah. Which probably just adds to it as well.
Yeah, they're both very different. My sister and my brother-in-law was deputy at Review for many years, and my sister taught there for many years, so I know Review very well, and all my nephews went there. But I think the difference is pretty pronounced when you look at the bank you look at JOEYS going to a game, you look at the predominance of boarding. JOEYS is always going to be a boarding school with some day boys.
Right.
Riverview is always going to be a day school with some boarders.
Yeah, right.
And everyone participates in the boarding. And I think probably the brothers were very keen, to say, well, the Catholics are playing each other. There's a bit.
They probably spurred it on a bit.
Oh, I think so. And it still goes on. Still goes on, but it's always banter.
Yeah.
It's always.
No, it's just fun.
And in fact,
but it's a good one. It's good fun. Yeah.
A great day out for anyone who loves sport is the Review JOEYS game at Leichhardt.
The SJC numbers that tell the story. In 131 years of competition, St Joseph's College has claimed 57 premierships. Nearly 50% of these were undefeated GBS champions. St Joseph's College has produced 107 Australian schoolboys, including 57 Wallabies all told. Some outstanding St Joseph's College old boys include Steve Williams, Ned Hannigan, Peter and Max Jorgensen, Luke Burgess, Kurtley Beale, Matthew Berg, Bill Young, Jake Howard, Darren Juney, Tom Wright, and All Black and Steve Devine, and Michael Lippman, who played for England. John Reading, Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
That's
My
been
pleasure,
great.
Chris.
I really enjoyed talking to you. Viewer challenge, please, if you did enjoy today's interview, press one button below. Thank you so much. Just a quick thank you, Michael Blake and Paul Deegan. It's been another world. I'm Chris Thomas, and thanks for watching.